Chapter 6. Tell a Lie. Shion had definitely said Sora's name, but how did she know it? The wheels of Axel's mind were spinning as he returned to his room. If Shion had any memories, and if, as he suspected, she had something to do with Namine and Kairi, the Princess of Heart, it wouldn't be so surprising that she knew who Sora was. But Shion certainly didn't seem to remember anything. To hear her tell it, she had no memories whatsoever of her past, and there was no reason to think she would lie to him or Roxas. It might mean, then, that she was regaining her missing memories, but what could they possibly hold? Now that he thought about it, Saïx had mentioned that Shion came into being in Castle Oblivion. Axel hadn't found any traces of her origin there. So far, anyway. It was impossible to search every corner of that place. To the best of his knowledge, all that remained of the organization set up there was Vexen's laboratory. And as for what they had learned in there, it was that memory was an uncertain thing. Being nobodies, they were at the mercy of the memories of their human lives, and in Castle Oblivion, they'd sought to rearrange a living human's memories. Those of Sora, wielder of the Keyblade. Human memories were terribly fragile, and all those pieces were liable to get mixed up and misplaced. They needed Namine's power to link them up in the order the organization wanted, but there had been one other aberration to account for. That was the replica, the puppet Vexen had built in his lab to copy memories. The replica absorbed memories with no assistance from Namine, and when he did, he copied strength and ability as well. He had even stolen Zexion's power. A sudden realization struck Axel so forcefully that he sat up straight. What was it Saïx had said? Shion was defective, a failure not qualified to be counted among them. A chill went up his spine. No, that couldn't be right. I have to find proof, Axel thought firmly. This is all speculation, just my own stupid mind wandering. I need facts. I need the truth about Shion. I remember. I didn't forget. Lying on her bed, Shion stared at the white wall. It was still a little bit hazy, but she could remember the dream. A group of people were playing around beside a wide blue sea. Not Axel or Roxas, but friends from the islands. Ever since she had collapsed yesterday, it felt like so many things had come back to her all at once. Were these the dreams she'd been having while she was asleep for all those weeks? Maybe they were memories too, the memories she and Roxas had forgotten. But she still didn't know who she was. She dreamed, she remembered, but she still couldn't see herself when she was a whole person. Who was I? Axel had barely gotten any sleep when he headed in early to the gray area. He might as well do his negotiating with Saïx about today's mission without anyone else to overhear. Apart from the days when something else came up, he'd been on the hunt for their imposter for a while, which was to say, Riku. Today was not likely to be different. Usually he had the privilege of deciding for himself where he would go in search of Riku. His field of activity was unrestricted, and that meant he could suggest a direction for the search. He was about to use that to his advantage. Before he even reached the lobby, he spotted Saïx. Hey, you're early. Saïx flicked a glance at him. Am I going after Riku again? That is the plan. Are you about to tell me you want to join Roxas on his mission instead? Saïx continued walking toward the lobby. Axel kept pace with him. Nah, this is about Riku. There's something I want to look into, so I figured I should probably ask you first. I'm sure you'll look into whatever you want with or without my permission. Well, I just didn't want to go poking around Vexen's lab without telling you first. Saïx stopped short, his eyes narrowing slightly, and he gave Axel a suspicious look. And what do you need to investigate there? Axel shrugged. Stuff about Riku, obviously. He was getting better at lying. You've seen all of Vexen's reports from Castle Oblivion. Yeah, and I want to know what happened before that. Maybe there's a lead. Saïx stared at him hard. Fine. You have permission to enter the lab. I'll have an underling bring you the key. Perfect. Glad that didn't take too long. Now I can get to work. Somehow, I doubt the scope of your investigation will be confined to work. Saïx's mouth curved into an approximate shape of a smile. Guilty as charged. Axel drawled. How much do you want to know? Nothing. Do what you want. Taking those words at face value, Axel waved at him and promptly left. He wondered absent-mindedly whether Sykes would have granted permission for something like this to any of the other members. Even now, did Sykes still trust him? Today's mission for Roxas was in a world called Wonderland. This marked his third visit, and his task was the same as before: to work with Luxord and destroy a specific Heartless. As Luxord and Roxas stepped out of the corridors, a white rabbit with a large pocket watch scurried by under their noses. I'm late! I'm late! I'm late! Oh, my report is due post-haste! My head's sure to be in trouble if I'm not there on the double! The white rabbit dashed away down a path in a considerable hurry. What's got him so wound up? Roxas murmured, staring after him. Luxord gave him an enigmatic smile. Curiosity is essential for clearing the path to one's destiny. Get too curious, though, and it'll be a very short walk. Following that rabbit's footsteps might be fate, or it might prove fatal. Who can say? Isn't that a little dramatic? Roxas said flatly. We still have to take out Heartless, whether we follow him or not. I wonder. Well, Roxas, why don't we track him down and see where our luck leads? Huh? Roxas hadn't expected that. He looked up at Luxord. What about the mission? You said yourself, the mission remains regardless of what rabbits we chase. Well, sure, but... Roxas couldn't guess what Luxord was thinking. Let's go, before we lose the trail. Luxord set out after the white rabbit, and Roxas had no choice but to follow. The air in Vexen's lab was stale after months of disuse. Unlike Sykes' facilities, which consisted mainly of computer banks, this place was piled high with books and sheaves of paper. Well, this is daunting, Axel muttered to himself, although at least the files were all properly labeled with a scientist's methodical rigor. He examined the bookshelf and plucked out a few files, then opened them on the desk, perusing them for any mention of Shion. At some point, he happened upon a file titled Nominee. His eyes roved over the text. What was Nominee? And what was her connection to Shion? What did Castle Oblivion have to do with Shion's origins? The answers were all there for him to read. Pursuing the white rabbit happened to lead them to a target Heartless, and their mission went quickly. In the end, your curiosity paved us a shortcut, Luxord remarked. Clearing the path to destiny, huh? Roxas repeated. Seemingly unrelated ideas could turn out to have some connection after all. If something piqued his interest, he might as well pursue it. But Luxord wasn't finished being dramatic. And all the way to the grave. Ugh, what is he talking about now? Now, for one last shortcut. Luxord opened the corridors of darkness. Roxas was still wondering what he meant as they left Wonderland. Atop the clock tower, Shion absently took a bite of ice cream. Today's mission had been another easy one. Sykes was always glaring at her. He doesn't want me around at all, does he? Her nose was stuffed up, and her eyes were stinging. She'd been having so much fun in that dream. Why did she have to be upset now? Hey, you're early, she heard Roxas say. She turned to greet him. My mission wasn't very hard. As usual, Roxas circled around behind her and plopped down. How are you feeling? I'm okay now, I think. Glad to hear it. Roxas grinned and took a bite of ice cream. Side by side, they enjoyed the cold, salty, sweet flavor. Where's Axel? He asked. He hasn't come by yet. The tower's bells rang. Before long, the sun would sink below the distant hills. Usually, Axel showed up earlier than this. It's getting kind of late, said Shion. Maybe he's not coming today. Why don't we wait a little longer? Okay, she nodded. If the three of them never had ice cream together like this, Shion thought, she probably would have been turned into a dusk by now. She wouldn't be here at all. It was thanks to Roxas that she'd regained the use of her Keyblade, and Axel had talked to Sykes on her behalf too. They'd both helped her when she collapsed again. They were always taking care of her. Shion let out a tiny sigh. You and Axel are always there for me. I don't do anything special, said Roxas. Axel's the one who sticks up for us, for Sykes. That's not true, Shion wanted to say. But she kept it to herself. Roxas would deny it again. I'm just glad you both are in the organization too, she told him instead. They gazed at the sunset. I wish Axel would come, Roxas murmured. I've been sleeping well lately, Roxas thought as he got himself ready. He'd stopped having those dreams, and he looked forward to getting out of bed. Every day brought something interesting. He reread the reports he'd written since joining the organization, counting the days. It was fun seeing all that had happened and all he'd done with Shion and Axel. I may not have any memories of when I was human, but it really is nice to have memories of something. Roxas left for the gray area. Work wasn't too bad either, but there was one thing bothering him. The full trio had not assembled at the clock tower in a while. In fact, he'd been the only one for about 10 days. Ever since he'd talked to Shion after the trip to Wonderland, he'd kept showing up at the clock tower only to eat ice cream alone. And there was so much he wanted to tell them. When he walked into the lobby, Axel was there for once. Hey, Roxas. Morning, Axel, Roxas said, a bit hesitant at the completely casual greeting. He hadn't seen Axel in days. You two will be teamed up today, Sykes informed them. What about Shion? Roxas whispered to Axel. Already left, he replied. Oh, so let's get going, said Axel. Huh? Where to? Neverland. Axel wasted no more time stepping into the corridors. Roxas hurried after him. Feels like it's been forever, doesn't it? He said as they walked the dark paths. Since what? You know, since we've had a chance to talk. Thinking, Axel scratched his head. Has it been that long? Yeah, it has. You haven't been coming up to our usual spot. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I've been pretty busy, Axel said as they came to the exit. A wide blue sea of Neverland opened up before them. It hurts. Shion brought down the Keyblade, finishing off a Heartless. Until recently, she'd been able to defeat this kind with one blow, but now her shoulders heaved, and she had to lean on the Keyblade like a cane. She'd been dreaming so much the past week or so, it felt like she hardly got any sleep. It was like she had to be awake in two different realms, reality and dreams. They weren't nightmares. In fact, she was always enjoying herself. But that only made her days in the waking world all the more dreary, and the sleep deprivation was affecting her technique. In an effort to get just a little bit more rest, she had to skip the clock tower. When she was awake, all her thoughts were unpleasant. At least she dreamed of nice things when she slept. Maybe Sykes knew. He'd been giving her all these easy missions, but sometimes she found it hard to finish even those. She thought she might have dreamed about Castle Oblivion last night, and Axel had been there too. Would it be okay to ask him about it? She wasn't sure. It made her nervous, terribly nervous, but she'd never get an answer if she didn't ask. I guess I'll go up today. Axel filled his lungs with the briny sea air and turned back to Roxas. Hey, isn't this the place you were telling me about? Oh yeah, it's true, just watch! Grinning ear to ear, Roxas sprang into the air. And immediately landed. It was a lovely jump. Huh? He tried again with the same result. Axel had been in a funk, preoccupied with the thought of how to keep what he knew from showing on his face the next time he saw Shion. But as Roxas hopped around in confusion, he burst out laughing. Hey, Roxas, what are you doing? It's so weird. I could definitely fly before. Roxas crouched and jumped again as hard as he could, and Axel cracked up once more. All the stuff weighing down on his mind suddenly seemed so stupid. Overthinking it wouldn't do anything, and that was something he already knew, so why couldn't he do something about it? It was strangely human of him. Then they heard a shout. Blast it all! Not again! It was a man, upset about something. A stout old-timer stood anxiously nearby. Dig, and all I find is rubbish, and more heartless with it. And more heartless with it? I tell you, it makes me blood boil. He stalked away, and the old-timer followed him. Captain, where are you going? Back to the ship. With that, the pair were gone. What's up with them? Axel muttered. I don't really know, but I saw them before, said Roxas. They were talking about treasure maps. Treasure maps? Is that what they're digging for? Yeah, but every time they do, the Heartless show up. Are they hiding in the ground? Maybe? Roxas hesitated. Or maybe not. You got a better explanation? All they actually dug up was a wooden chest full of junk. Sounds like the Heartless was in the chest then. I don't know. Roxas turned it over in his head. It wasn't a very good explanation, or it didn't feel quite right anyway. They had treasure maps telling them where to dig for buried treasure. And then, when they dug, they found a wooden chest containing a Heartless? Well, let's start by checking out all the places they dug up, said Axel, starting toward the hole in the ground. Yeah, good idea. They found something small and sparkly flying around the hole. Oh, hello again, said Roxas. It was the fairy he'd met before. Hey, Roxas, what is that? Axel stared, rubbing his head. Startled, Tinkerbell darted behind Roxas. I don't know her name, but we met the last time I was here. She doesn't mean any harm. She might not mean any, but... Axel peered behind Roxas's shoulder, trying to get a better look. She turned away, clearly uninterested in him. And she's the one who helped me fly, Roxas realized. Did she now? It's true! Roxas turned to speak to Tinkerbell. Can you help me show him? Give us some of that glowing stuff? Tinkerbell seemed to consider it for a few seconds, then flew in close spirals around Roxas and Axel. The bright dust settled over them, and Roxas floated into the air. What? Axel blurted. Told ya! Roxas shot up high, looking down at Axel. How are you doing that? I can't really explain it, but when she sprinkles this glowing dust on you, you just think, I can fly, and boom, you're flying. I can fly and boom? Axel said dubiously. Yup. Roxas made a loop-the-loop. Give it a try. Well, okay. Axel concentrated, a frown deepening on his brow. What's up, Axel? He shrugged. I'm not feeling it. Aw, give it another try. Believe me on this. All right, I believe you. Axel closed his eyes, and then he felt himself rise on the ground. I can fly? Yup, you can fly! Axel felt a bit unsteady, wobbling as he went, but he was definitely in the air. Whoa, I'm flying! Isn't this amazing? They practiced soaring and swooping for a while until Tinkerbell came up to them. She was pointing to where Hook and Smee had gone, to the pirate ship. You want us to go check out the ship? Said Roxas. Tinkerbell nodded. Are those guys from before aboard? Inquired Axel. Wait, are they your friends? She scowled, clearly offended. Apparently not, Roxas said. But then, why do you want us to... With a thunderous boom, something came hurtling toward them. Ah! It was a cannonball, obviously dangerous, and the pirate ship was firing more. They're attacking us? Roxas cried, dodging another. No, I think maybe they've mistaken us for Heartless, Axel presumed. Tinkerbell pointed at the ship again and flew straight for it. Hey, wait! Roxas darted after her, but Axel grabbed him. Roxas, are you nuts? We don't want to go closer. But... Roxas didn't want to let Tinkerbell fly to the pirate ship alone. At that moment, however, a winged Heartless appeared right in front of them. Their target. We've got a mission to take care of, said Axel. Besides, they'll never hit little Miss Sparkly. She's a tiny moving target. I guess, Roxas said reluctantly. Keep your eyes open, will you? I'd rather not have to scrape you off a cannonball. Well, you be careful too. Axel flung his chakrams at the Heartless, and Roxas swooped in with his keyblade to attack up close. But it easily glided away. As Roxas tried to pursue it, a cannonball whizzed by in front of him. Gah! Yeah, I told you to look out. Axel, already quite proficient in the air, caught Roxas's arm to steady him. Come on. They soared out over the sea after the Heartless. It wasn't particularly tough. The fight would have been over quickly without the cannonballs interfering. Axel attacked with a jet of flame, and as the Heartless flailed against the fire, Roxas finished it off with the keyblade. Not much of a challenge. Mission accomplished, said Roxas, watching the heart float up and away. So what are they shooting at now? Axel grumbled. Even with the Heartless out of the way, the cannons showed no sign of stopping. Roxas looked anxiously at the pirate ship. I hope she's okay. Your tiny friend? Yeah, maybe we should have gone with her. But they both knew there was no getting near the ship unless the cannon fire slowed down, which it was not about to. Well, it looks like we're not invited aboard anytime soon, said Axel. Anyway, whatever's going on, it's for this world to figure out. We're not supposed to interfere, remember? Let's call it a day. Axel was right. They didn't have much choice. Still, without the fairy, they'd never have been able to fly like this. Roxas wanted to help if she was in trouble. Cheer up, said Axel. She'll be fine. Yeah, I guess so, Roxas mumbled. Yeah, come on, let's get back. Giving up, Roxas nodded. It was nice to have some time with just Roxas. He didn't really want to think about Shion right now. Holding an ice cream bar, Axel sat laughing with Roxas atop the clock tower. You think that sparkly dust would work in other worlds? Roxas wondered. I don't know about that. Flying was quite an experience. Now he understood why it had Roxas so thrilled. Wow, you guys are early. Hey Shion, where have you been? While Roxas shouted with delight to see Shion, Axel automatically found something else to look at. It made him nervous. Sorry I'm so late. Shion took her perch beside Roxas. I had my hands full today. Okay, I have to tell you. Roxas crowed, still full of glee. Today, me and Axel were flying. Like, actually flying. All you need is this sparkly dust. Shion let out a tiny sigh. I was wondering why you two looked so happy. Lucky. You can come next time. That world has this beautiful sea. Really? Shion murmured, looking down at the rooftops. I've been to a world with a beach before. It was so pretty. Destiny Islands, it's called. Isn't the ocean nice? I love listening to the waves. Yeah, it is. Roxas was still riding high on the excitement. Axel, on the other hand... I'm not being a third wheel, am I? Asked Shion. What? Roxas was taken aback. Shion, you're our friend. Shion hung her head. Roxas and Axel both noticed that something was off, casting a pall over them. Hey, Axel? Shion murmured timidly. Yeah? You were at Castle Oblivion, right? Whatever Axel had expected her to say, it wasn't that. What do you know? Was on the tip of his tongue, but he only nodded. What's it like there? He asked. Just an organization research facility, Axel replied, perfectly honest. Her expression was dubious. Research, huh? Seems like everyone gets sent there all the time, Roxas said, trying to help her out. Especially you, Axel. They never send me or Roxas. We've never been, Shion pointed out. Probably because they don't need you there, Axel said without missing a beat. Silence fell between them again. The bells chimed. Taking it as a cue, Shion stood up. I have to get going. Huh? Roxas said in dismay. But then, Shion staggered. She lost her footing and slipped from the clock tower's ledge. Shion! Roxas lunged for her hand. A memory. My first memory. Sykes took me by the hand and brought me out of Castle Oblivion. This is the last you'll see of these walls, Shion. Yes, I remember what he said to me, and I remember where I was. Castle Oblivion. Roxas grasped Shion's hand and held on with all his might, and Axel in turn grabbed hold of him. Are you okay? Cried Roxas. I think so. She squeaked, suspended by only one hand high above the ground. Somehow, they hauled her back onto the ledge. Roxas had to catch his breath. Are you sure you're feeling all right? Maybe you need to rest more. No, that's not the problem. Sitting down again, Shion looked away from Roxas's anxious stare. Hey, I know, Axel blurted. Huh? You know what? Said Roxas. Axel grinned at them. Next time we get a day off, let's go to the beach. The beach? Where did this come from? Shion mumbled at her lap. Well, don't you want to go do something together for a change? Axel didn't often propose outings like that. He must have felt the urge to cheer Shion up somehow, Roxas thought, and then he brightened too. So, it'll be a vacation with friends. Bingo, Axel replied in kind. Now he sounded just as cheerful as he had before Shion had arrived. I wish she'd been here for that part too, Roxas thought. I'd like to join you, if I can make it. Shion's voice came out so small. Of course you can, Shion, Roxas told her firmly. You'll have a blast, trust me, Axel added. She looked up at them with a hint of a smile. Okay, sure, let's do it. As she finally agreed, Roxas and Axel exchanged a glance. So, for beach snacks, Axel thought aloud. It's gotta be pretzels, Roxas finished. Watermelon too, right? Said Shion. The three of them looked at one another and laughed in the light of the setting sun, just like always. Naminé and Diz gazed up at the pod. The air in the climate-controlled room should have been comfortable, but it felt stuffy somehow.
You seem to be struggling,
Diz remarked. Nominee's gaze dropped. I think a nobody is interfering.
A nobody?
Diz's voice dripped with disgust. What if some of his memories are getting lost? Shion went on, keeping her eyes on the floor. There would be no way for me to finish, no matter how long I try to line the pieces back up. If that happens, if the memories find their way into someone else and get linked to theirs, he'll never get them back. Sora's memories were leaking away. If they simply flowed into his nobody, that would be easy enough to remedy, but they were being carried somewhere else, somewhere completely unexpected. Maybe this was their punishment for toying with others' memories.
I'm sure he can do without a memory or two,
said Diz. But what if he needs those memories to wake up? Naminé insisted. What if they're the key?
Naminé, you are a witch who has the power over Sora and those connected to him. Do you see something I cannot?
She looked up at the pod where Sora slept. If his memories join with hers, she'll never survive it.
She?
Diz repeated. Naminé shook her head. It'll destroy her. I just know it. She didn't even know where to find Castle Oblivion, but she knew it was where she came from, so it was up to her to find out. Shion was in Sykes' lab. She knew a little bit about computers, and when she typed on the keyboard, lots of information came up on the screen. She wasn't looking for any major secrets, so she shouldn't have to contend with passwords. All she wanted to know was how to get to Castle Oblivion. That's not it. She typed again. No, not that. Aha! The screen displayed a nobody emblem and the location of Castle Oblivion. It was in the realm between. Shion committed it all to memory and left Sykes' rooms.
Get up.
Just 5 more minutes, Axel mumbled.
No, get up. Now.
The voice was distinctly annoyed. Axel relented and opened his eyes. What are you even doing in here? Sykes was standing next to his bed, as irritated as one might have guessed from his voice. Axel hadn't been so rudely awakened since before turning into a nobody.
Shion ran away.
Axel sat up. Ran away? Meaning she had deserted Organization 13. Shion. He climbed out of bed and started to freshen up.
You seem to be wide awake now,
Sykes remarked. Axel leaned back and stretched. I'm guessing you're gonna tell me to go find her.
Good guess. Shion is probably heading to Castle Oblivion.
What?
Of the two of us, I imagine you must know Shion better by now. Weren't you investigating?
Axel was stunned into silence.
What Shion does has no impact on the organization.
Sykes went on.
But we can't have her poking around there. You are to go and destroy them. That is my only order. I leave the rest to your discretion.
Axel nodded and left his room. Shion's head ached as she took in the sight of the strange castle. No, it felt like someone was calling to her, echoing inside her head. She was afraid to open the tall, heavy doors. She was afraid of what she would find beyond them, but she slowly pushed them open. Inside, the walls of cold white marble reminded her of the castle that never was, and yet the air felt different somehow. She made it to the middle of the entrance hall before a flare of pain in her head brought her to her knees. But the answers I want must be here, if I can just keep going. Then she heard something, footsteps. Behind her, she saw the familiar flaming hair of her dear friend. Axel, what are you doing here? Looking down at Shion, he scratched his head uncertainly. I had orders, that's all. I don't know what you thought you'd find in an empty place like this. Don't lie to me, Shion cried. I know this is where I come from. The answers are here. Axel shook his head, unruffled by her shouts. You can't just throw orders to the wind. Or else what? They'll turn me into a dusk? Worse than that, they'll skip right to destroying you. He said it like he didn't care, and something in her chest ached. Shion looked at the cold white floor. Because I'm useless? I didn't say that. Axel shook his head again and took her arm, pulling her to her feet. Just go home, Shion. This time, she shook her head. What should she do? Wouldn't Axel understand if she told him? She didn't know how to put it into words, though. Nothing sounded right. but still, she tried. I'm remembering things about who I was as a human.
Well, stop remembering. Nothing good will come of it.
She just put all her effort into explaining, and all he did was shoot her down. I've been having dreams every night. You're in them too, Axel.
Then they sure aren't memories. How could I be a part of your past? Use your head, Shion.
Why wouldn't he listen? You can't fool me, Shion shouted. We've met before, Axel, right here in this castle.
No, we haven't.
Axel put his hands on her shoulders to peer into her eyes.
Shion, just go back. Roxas is going to be wondering where you are.
Axel, please, just listen to me. I need to know who I am. She wriggled away from his patronizing attempts. She had to know. So she ran.
Shion, don't! Stay out of there!
He started to chase her, but Shion opened the door at the end of the hall. Through there was a room created by her memories. And someone was blocking Axel's path. Another young man in a black cloak. Riku. Wasn't I who I am? As Shion closed the door, Riku stared steadily at Axel. Or he faced Axel anyway. His eyes were covered by a strip of black fabric.
Riku,
Axel muttered, readying his chakrams. It hadn't quite been a year since Axel had last seen him, and yet Riku had grown into a completely different person.
Let her go,
said Riku.
What do you know about Shion? Axel demanded. Shion, is that her name? Anyway, I don't want to fight you. Then maybe you should get out of the way.
Axel hurled his chakrams. Riku smoothly dodged.
Like I said, I don't want to fight. What do you want with Shion?
Without answering the question, Riku vanished into a dark portal without a trace. In the round room, with Xemnas and Xigbar in attendance, Sykes carried on his report of Shion's desertion.
I sent Axel to Castle Oblivion on short notice last night to address the matter. I also instructed him to clear out our facilities there. He should be returning soon.
The question from Xemnas surprised him.
And where is Naminé?
Why Xemnas would be inquiring about Naminé rather than Shion, Sykes couldn't fathom, but he had to answer anyway.
Still missing, sir.
Ha ha! Wherever could she be?
Xigbar snorted with laughter.
Why, Xigbar, it almost sounds as if you know,
Sykes said. Xigbar's intentions were even more opaque than Xemnas's. He didn't like it one bit.
Continue,
Xemnas prompted him.
I found records of an unauthorized access to our main computer,
said Sykes.
You're really gonna pretend you don't know who?
Xigbar pressed. A nasty smirk twisted his mouth at Sykes' silence.
Our little puppet's turning into a problem. The resemblance is striking, isn't it?
Puppet?
Apparently that meant Shion, but what resemblance was he referring to? Shion was just as much a puppet as ever. Sykes had no time for all these deliberately oblique remarks from Xigbar.
Nonsense. I see no problem whatsoever.
Xigbar only laughed louder.
Puh! No, apparently you don't.
Something you find amusing?
Oh, the things you hear from a guy with no heart,
Xigbar said through his hilarity.
None of us have hearts,
Xigbar was about to remind him, when Xemnas spoke again.
No matter what unfolds, our plans remain unchanged. Axel, Roxas, and Shion will play the roles Kingdom Hearts has chosen for them. But sir, Shion...
Apparently, Sykes was the only one in Organization 13 who had misgivings about what Shion was meant to do.
If we don't leave it be, how can you not see how perfect this is?
Said Xemnas. Sykes averted his eyes, unable to follow.
Shion is marching right into the arms of destiny, but to destiny's own time,
Xemnas told him.
All we must do is watch with caution and patience. What is that supposed to mean?
Sykes hesitated to draw any conclusions from it all. He finished up his mission and went to the clock tower to watch the sunset and have ice cream. Having a routine wasn't so bad, Roxas thought as he squinted in the low sunlight.
Hey, you're early,
said a voice he knew. Roxas turned with a grin.
No, you're just late.
Axel smiled, though only faintly, and sat down beside him. The sinking sun drenched them in light.
Today makes 255,
Roxas murmured. Axel cocked his head at him.
What's that about?
It's been that many days since I joined the organization. Man, time flies.
Got the number memorized, do you?
Yeah, have to hang on to something, right? It's not like I have memories from before the organization. Don't you remember? I acted like a zombie.
In fact, Roxas knew how many days it had been since he'd been rereading all his reports. Axel stared at him as if trying to figure something out, and then grinned.
Right, that first week you could barely form a sentence. But come on, you're still kind of a zombie.
Oh, thanks,
Roxas huffed, and they laughed. Then they fell quiet and watched the sunset. Sitting in silence with anyone else would be unbearably awkward, Roxas thought, but with Axel and Shion, he didn't mind. It was nice, actually, sitting side by side and not saying anything. Because they were inseparable, it gave him the feeling that whether they were together or not, whether they talked or not, everything would be fine.
Hey, Roxas.
Axel's face was limned in the sunset's glow, his red hair shining crimson.
Bet you don't know why the sunset's red.
He eyed Roxas mischievously.
You see, light is made up of lots of colors, and out of all those colors, red is the one that travels the farthest.
He finished with a boastful grin.
Like I asked, know-it-all.
Roxas retorted, and Axel let out a low laugh. Axel wasn't quite himself today. Though Roxas couldn't have said exactly what had changed about him, still, it wasn't a bad thing. Roxas laughed too. He hoped Shion would get here soon.
Seriously, where is she?
Roxas thought aloud.
Roxas, I'm not sure she's gonna show today,
said Axel. That was alarming.
Did she collapse again?
Shion hadn't looked well for a while. What was wrong with her?
Oh, you didn't hear? Said Axel. She got sent on a really important mission. Pretty cool, huh?
The way he said it didn't quite sound natural, like maybe he was trying to keep Roxas from worrying.
Oh,
Roxas sighed.
So when's she coming back?
Well, I guess that depends on how well she does her job, right?
Fair enough.
Roxas looked out at the red sky and bit into the ice cream.
I hope we get a day off soon, so the three of us can go to the beach.
They'd promised her, after all. The last rays of the sun cast him in their brilliant red hues. End of Part 2.